Hey friends, let's make a sourdough loaf together. So I do things a tad bit different than the first video I did a long while back, so I find this is even easier actually. This is what your sourdough starter should look like. See how nice and active she is? Measure out 350 grams of water, and you need to heat it up to about 100 degrees, so that takes 30 seconds or so in my microwave. Back on your scale, and don't forget to zero it out. Measure out 60 grams of your starter. It's okay if it goes over a little bit. It's not going to hurt nothing. Now you're going to give it a mix till it's all incorporated. It's going to look kind of like milk. Clear out your scale again and then measure out 500 grams of all-purpose flour, 10 grams of sea salt, and then give it a mix until there's no more dry spots. This is what's called the shaggy dough phase. Okay, it's not going to be all pretty and tight and put together yet. It still looks pretty shaggy, pretty rough. Okay, now we got to let it rest for 30 minutes and cover it with a damp towel. And if you want this precious towel, you can go to CajunMamas.com and get you one, Sha. All right, 30 minutes have passed, and this is where I do things a little different than I used to. I used to dump this out on a floured surface and then do my first set of stretch and folds. Now I just do it right there in the dough bowl, y'all. It does the same thing, and it doesn't add a lot of extra flour to your dough. I find it comes out better. So there you go. You can see how I'm just picking it up on the side, stretching it, and folding it back into itself. And it's going to get to the point where it's so tight, it picks up the whole ball of dough when you go to try to stretch it. At that point, you can pretty much stop. Like it's as tight as it needs to be. See, everything came up. Now we're going to cover it again with a wet towel. And I like to put mine in my oven overnight just because my kitchen gets a little too cold. We go to dough, y'all. Good night. Now it's the next morning, about 10 hours later, and look how much she rose. That's a pretty dough. Okay, so flour your surface real good, and I have this banneton that I flour up real good, but you can use anything that size, y'all. I've used this colander before. Just put you a towel in it and flour your towel. You just don't want your dough to stick. Okay, put her out on the counter like this, and then you're going to do that stretch and fold process again. This time you see how I stretch it apart, and then I'm going to fold it back in over itself. Turn and do the same thing. Pull out gently and then stretch and fold back in. Probably do this about 4 to 6, 7, 8 times, something like that, until it tightens up on you. You're going to feel it tight where it really won't pull too much more without tearing the dough, and you don't want to tear it all up. So I don't know if this is the right way, but this is the way I do it. So there you go. Now the top's all nice and tight, and that part goes face down into the banneton to rest for another 30 to 45 minutes. I pinch together any little seams that I see, and I cover it again with that same towel. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees. It's not really going to rise in that last little 45-minute rest, okay? Flip it out over onto some parchment paper, and then I smooth things out. And watch what I do here. I kind of tuck it back in on itself to tighten up the top a little bit. I find when I do that, it scores a lot easier. So I'm going to just do a little simple cross scoring right here. I find it always comes out pretty like this, and it's nothing too complicated. So put it in your Dutch oven, and it's a cold Dutch oven. It's not preheated, and I like to smooth out the parchment around the sides. Okay, 40 minutes with the lid on, and then 10 minutes with the lid off. This is what it looks like. Then take it out of the parchment paper and put it directly on the rack for another 5 minutes. And here we go. Nice and crunchy, brown, beautiful tanned loaf. The hardest part is to wait until it completely cools before you cut it. Trust me on this, you have to wait. I don't know why that side didn't pop up, but oh well, it's still pretty. Check it out. Now she's cooled, and here we go. There's the inside. I don't know why we had that big tunnel, but it doesn't matter. It was delicious, and I was happy.